Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this video is sort of a introduction to Git. This video won't make you a Git master. I'm not going to really get into nuts and bolts of like GitHub and remote repos all that much. I'll mention them a little bit, but I do want to show you guys how to use Git. Now, Git is a version control software. Now, if you don't already have Git installed, then the way you can check is that in your terminal, I'm on Linux, so I'm using a bash terminal. And in there I can do git -- version, and I can see that I'm running git version 2.17.1. So if you don't have Git, meaning when you run that command it just says I don't know what you're talking about, then go out and install Git. Just do a quick Google search on your operating system and how to install Git, and you'll have Git. Now, how does Git work? So right now I'm in the root folder, and I think I already have a folder called Git Practice. Yeah, there it is, Git Practice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cd into that folder, Git Prac. And right now, this folder should be pretty much empty. Okay, let me just rm that test file. We'll do everything from scratch. rm test.tx. There we go. Let's clear what we got so far. Now when I take a look in this folder again, there's nothing in it. Okay. Now what a Git repository does, it allows us to keep track of the files in a project. So you generally always want to do this in some sort of folder that's only for your project. And what you'll be able to do is create a repository. That repository is going to keep track of, think of it as like taking photographs. So you'll be able to sit there, work on your project, and every once in a while make a commit. Think of a commit as a photograph, and then the Git repository is like an album of all those photographs in chronological order. So that way you can kind of see the evolution of your project. And again, it doesn't have to be like coding and whatnot. It could literally be like you're writing a book, and every once in a while you write a chapter and you do a commit. So that way, hey, if it turns out that the last 2 chapters sucked and you want to go back, or there was a better version of your chapter several photos ago, you can go back. Okay, it just keeps track of whatever is there, and that's cool. So to create a new repository, you just type in git init, and this creates a new Git repository. Now, how do we know that the Git repository is made? ls/la, and we see that there's this .git folder. That's the repository. So when Git works, it's saving your snapshots in that folder, that .git folder. So if you were to remove that folder, you would no longer have a Git repository. So let me try to just show you how that would work. So sudo rm-r.git. Okay, so now we go ls-la. That folder is gone. And if I were to try to put in a git command like git status, so he says, hey, there's no Git repository. What are you talking about? Okay, so that folder is your Git repository, or at least, and you always find it in the root. So basically, that Git repository can track all the files and folders in that folder that you made it and below. You generally never want to put another Git repository below. So wherever that Git repository is, there shouldn't really be another one initialized beneath it. There are situations in when you can, but I highly recommend that you shouldn't. So generally, one Git repository per project. Don't try to create like a repository of many projects, especially if you're doing coding and you're trying to deploy using GitHub, and you'll just make things more complicated than you need to. Okay, so let's reinitialize that Git repository. So git init, and basically let's say that I make a file. So I'm going to say nano test.txt. So I'm opening up Nano, and I'm going to create a file that says hello world. Control X to save. Okay, now let's just make sure that this file exists. So I'll just do cat test.txt so we can see what the contents of the file are. Hello world. Okay, neat. Okay, so cat hello world. Good. Now let's see here. If I do git status, I can see the status of Git, and see right now I have one file that's red. That means that file is currently not being tracked by Git. Okay, so think of you have like 3 buckets. you have a bucket of files that are just disorganized and untracked. Those are your red. Now, what I want to do is say, hey, you know what? I plan on taking a photo soon. So that way, I have like a little snapshot. So I like certain things from that bucket of untracked stuff to be in the photo. So I want to move it to this middle bucket called staging. The way I would do that is I would add it. So git add, I could do git add dot, which adds everything. Or I could do git add test.text and just adds that one file. So that moves that untracked red file into the green staging area. So now if I type git status, see, it's now green, which means it's ready to be photographed. Okay, it's sitting there in the light, it's got makeup, it's ready to go. So now I want to take that photo. So that way if I need to go back to it, I can. So I'll just type in git commit -m. Okay, and then what you do is you just type in a little message saying my first commit, whatever you want to say. You generally want to put something descriptive. My first commit. Okay, and see, now I've made a commit. So if I type in git status now, it says there's nothing to commit, because right now there's no changes that I've made that have not yet been committed. There's nothing there to worry about. So there's nothing in the red bucket. The red bucket's clear. The green bucket's clear. Everything is in the last bucket. That's the photograph, the most recent photograph. Now, if I want to see all sort of like the past, what's been going on in my Git repository, I can type in git log, and this will kind of give me a history. So right now I see there's a history where I made this commit today on June 4th. A little bit late in the day, I figured, hey, maybe I shouldn't do every video when I just first wake up. And then this is like a special commit number. So if you later on you wanted to go back to this photograph and go back to your project in this state, this is the number you would use to refer to. And you can kind of tell which one's which because you can read the little commit messages you give to yourself. Okay, so that's kind of how that works so far. So let's clear this out for a second. And this is all, and the thing is that not only can you have photographs, you can have different tracks. So right now, if I type in git branch, see, we're in a branch called master. That's like your original picture, like this. It's your original photo album. But let's say I wanted to go do something experimental, and I'm not sure if I want to keep it in my master branch. I'm not sure if I really gonna want to save over what I have so far. What I can do is I can experiment and do a new branch. So I would just do like git checkout. Checkout's how you switch branches. I put -b for a new branch, and we'll say new branch other. Okay, so now if I were to edit test.text, nano test.text, I'm going to change this to goodbye world. Control X, save it. Now if I do git status, yeah, I see that the changes I made are not staged yet because I haven't added them to the staging area. They're not green yet, so I have to add that. Git add test.text. Git status just to see, hey, look, it's green now. And then I can do a git commit -m, commit other branch. Cool. Okay, now if I cat test.text, I see, look, it says goodbye world. But now if I switch back, so if I go git checkout and I go back to the master branch, okay, and I can see I'm back in the master branch by typing git branch, and I see that, hey, I'm on the master branch. It's the green one. But now if I cat test.text, notice it says hello world again. Why? Because the changes we made was while we were on the other branch. So the commit we made was on the other branch. Now what if I liked what I did in the other branch and I'm ready to pull it into my master branch and say, hey, you know what? I like those changes. I think I'm ready to commit to them in my main thing. Let's do that. I just type in git merge and the name of the branch I want to merge in. So I want to merge in the other branch with the branch that I'm currently on, which is master. So git merge other, and see, it makes its changes. So now if I do cat test.text, look, it's goodbye world. I've made the changes. Okay, so that's pretty neat. So that's sort of the main. There's a lot of other things you can do with Git, but that's sort of like the main tool. You're just kind of committing, and then you go on your branches. But this is all keeping track of it locally on your computer. Now, there's a lot of services like GitHub, GitLab, and what they do is they give you the ability to have a remote repository, to have a copy of your repository that's available somewhere else. Okay, but it's a separate repository. It's just a copy of your repository. But let's say I go on GitHub, I create a repository, and I would like to be able to push this repository I have on my computer to there, so that way I have a backup copy. I have to add the remote. So when you go on GitHub and you create a repository, there's generally a URL. And I would type in git remote add. So that means I'm going to add a remote. And then I'm going to give it a name. Usually the one on GitHub is called origin. So when you have your remote on GitHub, it's called origin. And then you would put in the URL, which would be like git something, something or other. Okay? And then you hit enter, and that would become a remote. And I can see which remotes I've added by setting git remote. Right now I haven't added any, so there is no git remotes. I can also remove that remote by doing git remote, I think it's rm, then the name. So I could be like, I want to remove origin. And it'll remove it. Cool. But once I have a remote, I can then push my code. I can push my most recent photograph, my most recent commits, or at least in the upgraded version of my photo album by just doing git push. Then I put the name of the remote, so my GitHub would be origin. And then I specify which branch I'm pushing. So I would be pushing my master branch. And then it would push the master branch to that remote repository. Okay, so generally, let's say I'm working on the same project on multiple computers. What I would do is I'm on computer A, I work on computer A, I do all my commits on computer A, and then when I'm done, I push all those updates to GitHub. Okay, and then I go to my other computer, I want to make sure I get all those updates. So then I would do git pull origin master, so I would pull from GitHub onto my computer, so that way my other computer now has all the updates and I can work there now from where I left off on the other computer. So oftentimes you can use that remote repository as central to keep all your computers sort of synchronized as far as what you're working on. So push pushes to the remote of the name you give it, so it doesn't have to be origin. So if you're talking about Heroku, you might call your remote there Heroku. You might have a GitLab, and you call it whatever you want to call it. But you name the name of the remote and which branch on the remote. That's essentially how that reads. And it's git pull, git push, and it's allowing you to grab and pull from different remote repositories. So GitHub, GitLab, these are remote repositories. So again, you can keep track of your versions locally by just doing git commits and git adds and all this stuff. Then you can go back it up by doing a git push on a git remote repository. You can then, branch off and experiment by making branches. And if you like what you did, you can then merge that branch back in. These are the kind of features that you have on GitHub. And hopefully this was a nice little introduction to just kind of understand what the features of Git are, not GitHub, of Git. Okay, there's a difference. GitHub is the online repository service. Git is the actual software, and that we're using locally on our computer to keep track of the versions of stuff. Okay, and see if I go to git log one more time. Okay, I can see that, hey, look, I have 2 commits. So here's like the commit from when I did the merge and all that stuff. Okay, so this is the git commit history. And yeah, that's how that works. That's how Git works. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'll see you guys later on. Have a great day and enjoy.